Our next guest today, Mark Grossi, formerly with the Fresno Beat. Is it all right to say that?
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of people have seen your name for years and years and years in the Beat. And you retired? Would you call it retired?
I'm still writing. I'm a freelance writer.
Well, I meant retired from the Bee.
Yes, I do not work for the Bee anymore.
Almost anybody I've ever known that worked for the Bee is now retired from the Bee.
Yes.
We're not going to talk about that. I won't put you on the spot. But they had a purge. I mean, the industry's changing.
Industry is changing a lot.
So people such as you who were in the industry are shifting how you do things.
Yes. I'm writing in a different venue, basically.
And what is that? What are you doing now?
I'm writing stories for the Alicia Patterson Fellowship based in Washington, D.C. It's the oldest journalism fellowship on record, I believe. It dates back to the 1960s. So it's an incredible opportunity to write about the San Joaquin Valley, the problems the smaller communities are having, the rural communities.
With environmental issues?
With environmental issues, health issues, emotional issues as a result of what's going on. It's a deep subject, and it's not something you're going to read in a daily newspaper, for instance.
Now, the Alicia Patterson Fellowship, they have a bunch of writers out there writing different things?
They pick 6 or 7 of us a year. And it's sponsored, so we're paid for it, and it works out well.
And you filled out an idea, you had an idea, and you sent it in, and they accepted it, so it's kind of prestigious.
It is. It's a worldwide competition.
Wow.
So it's good to get Fresno on the map.
We had some pictures. Why don't we run through these and you tell us what's going on and how they fit in with your project? That's Hyde Park?
That's Hyde Park in West Fresno. West Fresno is part of what I'm writing about. My story is focusing on epigenetics. And
you come back to us, Robert, while we talk about the Hyde Park.
But you can see it's barren. You can see that it's not developed at all. It's built on top of an old landfill.
The people from West Fresno, some of them feel they're the second-hand citizens anyway, and they get a park and it's built on a garbage dump.
And it's dangerous. It is dangerous. People in that part of town live fewer years than they do in Northeast Fresno.
Is there methane leaking?
I don't think in that spot there is, but there is plenty of environmental challenges going on, especially with pesticides, air pollution, and there's an awful lot of industrialized stuff going on. So you get particulate matter that you wouldn't normally see in other parts of the city.
Hyde Park, our mayor was Floyd Hyde in the '60s.
That's right.
He passed away in the last few weeks, I think, and. I always try to find people to tell that story to. Nobody even knows what I'm talking about. But you remember?
Well, I know the name, and I wasn't here in those days, but I came here in the 1980s.
Okay. So besides just that this region of Fresno, the people feel a little maybe second-class citizens or treated as such, and now their park is built on a garbage dump, but you said there's a psychological effect too.
Sure. Well, actually, in this story, I'm writing about the physical effects. There's a family of people there who moved there from, like, Oklahoma, and there were not physical problems. Suddenly, they developed physical problems, and I've seen a picture of the family. There were 8 members in this family pictured, and 6 of them had died.
Oh my goodness!
And of various things, and it's part of what's going on in the genome in their bodies from all the stress.
Okay, the stress, not just the pollution or the toxics that may be affecting them, but the stress that goes along with it.
The stress that goes along with it.
The stress of not knowing.
That's right, but also the pollution. I mean, it's a cumulative thing.
Okay, what's this next picture?
The next photograph you're looking at is in the Matheny Tract is southwest of the city of Tulare. The Matheny Tract is very close to the sewage treatment plant for the city of Tulare, and yet they are not hooked up to the plant, unfortunately. And they just did get hooked up to the city's water system, which was a very long road. Takes years to do this. You know, the people in Northeast Fresno have got some sort of water problem going on right now, getting a lot of attention.
That Matheny Tract.
Matheny Tract it's been happening for years, and they just now got water.
They just now got into the water. Now, you know, when you came and you were with the Fresno Bee, and we're talking about Fresno, Fresno, Fresno. So I'm thinking, well, that's what you're writing about when you talk about the valley. It's just Fresno, right? It's not. Tulsare's what, a mile? I mean, 60 miles, 70 miles.
Right.
down
No,
the
it's
road.
the San Joaquin Valley. I'm writing.
Valley.
I'm focusing on Tulare, Kings, and Fresno counties, but it's the San Joaquin Valley. A lot of the studies I'm referring to are for the entire 8
All over the
counties.
valley. Now, the Matheny tract, did they then get on city water?
They did finally. There, after a state law was passed,
Wow.
after all kinds of, there was a lawsuit. They are hooked up now, and the city the state spent millions to get them a sewage system, not a sewage system, a piping system to deliver the water.
Get the water over there. Were they not in the city limits?
No,
or-
they are not, and
They were in
that's
the county.
that's the
little island of
history.
the county. Yeah.
This was the history of an African American community that moved here as the quote Black Okies of the migration of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they were discriminated against. Basically, the community has been shunned for many years.
Somebody said, "Well, that's where you live, and you're not getting our services."
Well, and you know, the community was established because people would not lend them money to buy property in the city of Tulare. They found somebody who would sell to them outside the city.
And through the foundation, you're putting this in writing and
Yes.
becoming part of the record, or for
Yes.
history and future historians or current researchers.
Yes.
What's this next picture?
Next photograph is Rebecca Quintana in the small town of Seville in Tulare County.
I was going to say in Spain, right?
It's a beautiful sounding name,
Yes,
and there are parts of this city, this little town, that are right up against the Sierra Nevada. It's beautiful, but the
Seville.
water is
It's
tainted.
Tulare County?
It's Tulare County.
Okay.
This is the place that the United Nations visited in 2011 when they came through looking at inadequate water around the globe. It's
They went to Seville. Now, where is it? It's up against the mountains?
well, it's toward the northeastern part of the valley portion of Tulare County, and it's the water was just a horrific situation. It was in the pipes were sometimes leaking, and they were sometimes in irrigation ditches. So you'd get water, sand, you get pollywogs, you get everything in your sink when they turn the water on.
Yeah, and part of it is, I guess, well, whose problem is it? I mean, if they're not in a municipality, not in a city, I would imagine Seville's not incorporated.
Right.
So is it a county problem? Is it a state problem? Is it the people who built the houses? Is it the builders?
It's a problem that falls between the cracks, basically.
Yeah. And there's nobody to say, hey, we're...
Right. Well, I mean, they have advocates now, and there have been advocates, but when I began covering this stuff 20 years ago, it fell right through the cracks.
And unless you get for example, a state representative, an assemblyman, or a senator, or somebody to really push, say, hey, we need to fix this problem, it probably wouldn't get fixed.
Well, yeah, and even if you do, sometimes the San Joaquin Valley doesn't have a lot of clout.
Right.
So it's an uphill fight, and it's a fight worth making, though, because
from my experience in the legislature, I saw time and time again where, L.A. or Orange County or the Bay Area, they get 10 times the resources for the same number of people, or the same number of problems, or the same number of students, or, when I was in the legislature, Orange County had like 500 road miles, where Tulare County was the most in the state. Thousands and thousands of miles. They had dirt roads, but Orange County still got 10 times the road money.
it's
And
just
it's
the way
about
it
political
works out.
clout.
It's all about political clout. And in the early 90s, late 80s and 90s, we started covering closely the cancer clusters down in McFarland and Early Mart. And after you go to a funeral for one of these children who died in this childhood cancer cluster, you begin to see that maybe there aren't all the questions that need to be asked are not being asked.
Not being asked, yeah. And, who's asking them? It's just a small group of people trying to get some attention, and, it's easier just to ignore them, I would imagine, and cheaper.
And science didn't understand it. We've come a long ways in the
Especially
last
if you don't know
25
the
years.
answer. Science didn't know the answer.
Yeah, no, there was really no way to answer it.
But you knew something was there. A reporter, when you're reporting and going to funeral and then another and another, you say, well, something's here.
Well, anybody would. I mean, that's, you or I or anybody went to these, you begin to see these mothers and fathers crying and realize how much pesticide was being applied in this area, and this little town is right on top of it. There's some connection, but you can't figure it out.
Now, so the fellowship, you're doing 4 articles.
4 articles.
And they limit you a little bit. You don't get to write, a volume on it.
No, yeah, but it's a good challenge, and it's a good way to stoke up something for maybe a larger publication next year or the following year, something like that. It's important just to keep this in the public's eye, though.
Well, let me ask you about the process as a writer. Do you write, you research, you write, and you end up with 10 times as many words, and then you just try to make it more and more concise and trim and cut and trim and cut?
That's pretty much, you've got it. That's the way it goes, and you wrestle with yourself, and the older you get in this, it's not easier, but you can do more of it yourself than
well, I'd imagine that when you're at the Bee and you're writing articles every day, you learn to write quickly and concisely and make it make a lot of sense and be very accurate in a short amount of time.
I don't know how much sense I made, honestly, but I could get it out very quickly, and it would mostly be right. I mean, it's impossible to be perfect.
Now you have, so you're going to write 4 articles.
Yes.
Have you written all 4?
I'm finishing the 3rd one now, and the 4th one is going to involve all the pollution and the natural challenges we have in the San Joaquin Valley, and for that I'm going to travel to China to look at the Asian pollution factor. Should be interesting in October.
They are producing a lot of pollution there.
Oh, yeah.
And, we kind of went through the same thing earlier, and before we started thinking about, well, maybe we should do this and that, catalytic converters, and, don't dump the things in the river and stuff. It took us a while, and it seems like China could benefit from looking at other areas that grew quickly.
Well, but it's fascinating, the whole mechanics of it, getting into the jet stream and coming to California.
Oh, China's pollution's coming here?
Yes, at least that's what they're trying to say. Now, there are a lot of environmentalists I know who look at that and go, you got to be kidding me. It's happening right here.
Right. Well, when I was in the legislature, we always said, I don't want to confuse this with the facts. So we always said, San Joaquin Valley pollution's obviously coming from the Bay Area. It just comes here and gets trapped. It's just something we said we're politicians. We're not held to the same standard as a journalist such as you. So you're actually, instead of just making up your data, you're researching it.
Well, I'm trying.
Yeah. Our way is much easier, I tell you. So you're going to go to China and research if their streams are actually, or try to get a handle on it.
Yeah. I'm going to try to, it's the particulate matter season that I'm trying to see, which is blinding. I mean, you can hardly see, and you have to wear masks and...
It's not always that you're going to figure out the problem or the cause of it, but you're going to put on record that, hey, we need to start looking at this, and here's some possibilities, and so that the next person can take the next step and hopefully let the people know what's going on.
Absolutely.
Now, so you've written 2. What were the 2 that you've submitted so far?
The first one was a kind of an overall piece, and it featured Rebecca Quintana, the woman you saw there. The second one was on West Fresno, and it focused on a family where people are... I spoke with a 41-year-old guy who's had 2 kidney transplants, and his chest is a railroad of scars from heart surgery, and none of those problems were in his family history until they moved to West Fresno.
West Fresno. And now, are those someplace where we could read them?
They are not yet. They will be posted on the Alicia Patterson website, aliciapatterson.org, but
Alicia
it is not. They're not up yet. I believe they're going to do it at the end of the year.
Maybe all of them will go up together.
Something like that.
Series
Yeah.
like that. Maybe there'll be a big release and a big statement, and hopefully a lot of eyes will turn that direction and say, "Wow, there's something going on here that people are not talking about."
I hope so.
Now, at the Bee, did you write about mostly environmental stuff?
I wrote about all these subjects when I was at the Bee. The thing that I was known for was covering water in the early part of the 90s, but I wound up, and I wrote a very large project on the San Joaquin River in 1999, sort of telling you about, forecasting what was going to happen with the settlement and them trying to restore salmon and all of that. And a couple of years later, I wrote Last Gasp. I and 2 colleagues of mine, Russell Clemmings and Barbara Anderson, who is still with the paper, And we talked about how serious the problem of air quality is in the San Joaquin Valley. It was a 25-page section, and it won national honors, and it got a lot of attention.
It made a lot of people look and say, wait a minute, this is pretty big.
That's something that you aspire to do.
Yeah, most of us go through our life and you hear air quality, oh yeah, it's bad in Fresno. We don't do anything about it. We don't think about it. We just hope there's somebody out there, whether it be an air quality board or a journalist or somebody doing something, or a scientist, or who
It's
knows.
changing. It's getting better, I
Yeah.
think. But you know, the latest standards for ozone and for PM 2.5 are going to be so strict by the 2030s. We're going to probably mostly be electric in this
Yeah,
valley. The cars, the
I think we're seeing that
industries.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And the cars, I mean, we all, oh, no way, but, they're fascinating right now, the
Oh,
cars.
it'll
Either
be the
hybrids
only
and
way it'll
electric.
happen, though.
Now, when I was on the city council in Fresno, they had passed AB 939 that said we must cut the amount of solid waste we take to the landfill in half. And I said, there's no way. I mean, you can't cut anything out, but sure enough, you can.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you can make changes in pollutants and emissions to maybe make some changes. So.
Yeah, well, we are naturally challenged here. It takes about half the pollution here to create the same mess as they do in L.A.
Right. Now, my producer's signaling me it's supposed to be a 10-minute interview, so sorry to keep you longer, but is there anything you want to add? We might ask you to come back, if you don't mind, a few times and give us an update. Anything you want to add before we're totally out of time?
There is so much to know about the environment around us that I just encourage everybody to get into it a little bit.
Everybody get into it a bit. And when you hear, some of these bigger guys coming out and say, yeah, there is global warming, there is this, there is that, you got to think, well, all right, well, these are people smarter than me. Rush Limbaugh says there's none, but this guy seems pretty bright, so we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I'm just kidding around. Mark Grossi, say the name of the fellowship again.
It's the Alicia Patterson
Fellowship. Look it up. And I bet there's a lot of fascinating stuff on their site.
A lot.
Past research, because they go for people who can do the research and put out a good paper that's understood by many people. We will be back. By the way, should people be trying to reach you or send you notes or email or
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Mark Grossi, and I can be reached there all the time.
Remind me after the show to learn how to get on Twitter, all right? I do the Facebook, so Twitter, I don't know. All right, Mark Grossi, writing about the environment here in the Valley for a very prestigious fellowship. We'll be back with more Central Valley Business right after this.